we are live and ready to go. And as always, looking like a complete mess. But yay. Let's wait for some people to join us. Instagram should be announcing that we're live today. Hang on, we're telling more followers to join your video. Thank you very much, Instagram. I'll be waiting for everybody. Today we're having a speaking club again at Sunday, 1 o'clock. 3rd of May already. Time is flying fast, very fast. I should dye my hair very soon. Used to be blue, but now it's like swamp green, unfortunately. Like Shrek's swamp green. Hello, hi. Let's wait for Instagram to announce that we are live. Some more people are gonna join us today. Why am I always doing this thing? I usually do lives, Instagram lives, only for these type of speaking clubs, so I'm always like messing something up. Although it's not that difficult to do a live, but I mean, I'm still getting into troubles for some reason. It doesn't let me save the lives. Hello, hi, thank you for joining. Hi. Yes, as usual. I mean, yeah. That's what I was saying. I'm always messing up the lives because I don't know what I'm clicking, but I'm clicking something. Oh, I'm very well. Thank you for asking. How about you? How are you doing? How are you enjoying this weather? It's quite sunny outside. It's very nice outside. I think everybody should be staying outside and enjoying some sun instead of spending time inside the house. But it's unfortunate. They prolonged the quarantine. Hi there, hello. How is everybody doing? How are you? Very good. I think they prolonged the quarantine until 11th. I hope that's the last time they do that because I just want to go out. I just want to be able to go to shops and stuff like that. It's quite frustrating at this point. Okay, sure. Do I send it as a message? American and how do I pin it though? That's what I've been saying. I usually do these lives only for the speaking clubs, and it's quite frustrating because I don't know half of the time what exactly I'm doing. Yeah, very good. How would I pin it? Do I pin it? How exactly to do that? Oh, doesn't allow me to do the pinning. I'm doing something wrong again. I'm always I don't know half the time what exactly I'm doing, unfortunately. Oh well, unfortunately, that's just me. So yeah, today's topic is going to be American versus British English, which is obviously these two types of English languages. I mean, it is still English language. We speak the same language, but I would say it's more of a difference as in they come from, where exactly they come from. You love British accents? I like British accents too as well, but sometimes they're very hard to understand. I think people from London are easy to understand the way they speak, but like Irish or Welsh accents are very thick and they're hard to understand sometimes. I struggle with those, even though we speak the same language, even though it's still English. Cockney accent, oh yeah, they sound very cool. I like posh British accent. They sound so like aristocratic and stuff. But I mean, me as well, I have troubles to understand Welsh accents and Irish accents. They're very thick. Hi there, thank you for joining. I think Australian and New Zealand accents are quite good as well. I like Australian accents the most. They're easy to understand, at least for me. Then some people don't understand them. But even inside America we have different accents. Yeah, Victoria Beckham, yeah, I think she has like the best posh accent. Even inside America we have different types of accent which are quite different. I'm sure some of you already have heard of the typical Southern accent, like the Texan accent, which is very often portrayed in movies by black people. So that's usually like the South part of the USA accent. And then we have the North, which is the normal language. I don't think we have any accent at all, honestly. But all these things aside, hello. We have obviously quite different. It's not only a difference in accent itself. It's also the difference in the language, which is American and English, British English. Obviously, I think the majority of people that study English study British English. I haven't met anybody who is studying American English, at least not in European countries. That's for sure. All the European countries study by Oxford and British books. In Florida, they have kind of Spanish accent. Yeah, in Florida we have lots of Puerto Ricos, people coming from Puerto Rico. And I think it's the same all over the south border, because we have the south part of America has lots of Mexicans and people from South America like Guatemala, Bolivia, Brazil, and stuff like that. And Florida is like the closest place to Puerto Rico. So we have lots of Puerto Ricans in Florida, so that's why they have this type of accent, I guess. But again, I don't think everybody has these accents, and sometimes it's very hard to understand them, especially for people that immigrate to America, because English is not their first language, so they kind of try to assimilate the accent or from people that surround them. Hello. They try to assimilate the accent from people that surround them, but obviously since they already have their own type of accent, since they're not native English speakers, it kind of like mixes the two. It's very difficult to obtain a new accent. I prefer American accent but enjoy hearing British. That's very nice. I don't think I have an accent because I might as well have one, because my mom speaks with a very thick Italian accent, so I might have like taken some few things from her. Potter. Oh, I love that one. Yeah, that's the typical, the Potter. That's the typical British sound that we have. But the differences, accent differences aside, which is just to learn an accent, to understand an accent, you have to just get used to hearing it. You just need to involve yourself with these people and listen to the voices, listen to how they speak, trying to understand why are they speaking that way, how they pronounce in the vocals, the sounds and stuff like that. Indian accent is quite difficult to understand so fast. That's actually a very good point, because Indian accents are very hard to understand. I wholeheartedly agree with that. But the English language that they study in India is actually the pure English. So, for example, since in America as well as in Britain, in UK, we have the language never stops evolving. The language always changes all the time. So words change their meaning, new words get created, and slang appears. So the meaning is always changing, the language is always evolving, it's always something new. In India, actually, the language that they teach is actually the pure British, that is the same from the time that we were colonized by Britain. So all these years from the colonization of India by Britain to these days, they speak the same English language that they spoke years and years and years ago. So actually, if you want to study the purest form of English, you don't go to America, you don't go to Britain, you go to India, which is quite interesting. But the accent that they speak with is impossible to understand. That's very true, unfortunately. And I love to make strong Russian accent. Yeah, I think the difference with Russian accent, they pronounce every word. Like, we have some sounds that we kind of like eat them, that we don't pronounce. Russians tend to like pronounce every word for some reason. I guess it's the language. Russian language is like that. Okay, what about the personality of people? British people are more secure than Americans, as far as I know. More secure, what do you mean more secure? Are they more confident? That's what you're implying? Because I think there's nobody more confident than Americans. We're the most confident. I think Americans live with the motto of that, like, we're the greatest country of all, we're the greatest people. So the confidence of Americans is like through the roof. But I mean, maybe different people, different personalities, so I don't know, I wouldn't judge based on just where they're coming from exactly. But since we're on the topic of English language, as I already said, the majority of you are studying or have studied British English, which reserved. Oh, they're more reserved. British people are more reserved than Americans. Oh yeah, that's for sure. That's very true. Americans are more open to. Yeah, I would agree with that. So as I was saying, the majority of you are studying or have studied British English, which is quite different from the English that I usually would speak. which is American English. You don't need to worry that much about the differences in the two languages. It's still the same language. It's still English language. There might be different accents that you just need to kind of get used to. Unfortunately, there's not much to do with that. But if you study British English and you want to go to America, it's perfectly fine. You're not gonna get in trouble that much. People will still understand you because the differences are not that huge. Obviously, it's still the same language. There's like small differences here and there, and which are quite noticeable, but not to the extreme that you cannot understand other people. So originally, actually, English language in itself is just a mixture of different languages. So English language is more of a mixture of Latin, of whatever language does, Germanic language, Latin, which is French, Italian, stuff like that. So it's more of like conglomerate of languages that evolved into English because it takes its roots from lots of languages. And one of the characteristics that are still present in British English is some words connections to old French. So, for example, I think most of you have noticed the color thing that British people have. For example, in British, the word color is gonna be C-O-L-O-U-R. In American English, it's gonna be C-O-L-O-R. We don't do the U that British people have. And I think there's lots of examples like that. I just cannot think of them straight from the head, unfortunately. Like order as well, parlor as well, and stuff like that. So British English has actually saved. I have no idea how to pin it, unfortunately. Or maybe hi there. And we're discussing, everybody who is new, we're discussing the differences between English language, British English language and American English language, which are quite different, but at the same time quite not very different at all. Yeah, I just don't know how to pin it. It doesn't allow me to do anything, and sorry about that. But as I was saying, in words like color, order, parlor, British English has saved the little U, which has roots to French language. Takes its roots from French. Americans decided that it's too difficult for us. We decided to just make it easier to write because we don't pronounce the U sound. We just decided, okay, it's unnecessary. We're just gonna make it easier for everybody, and we just deleted the U in all of these words. So if you want to learn the difference between, if you meet a person, or like text a person and you meet a person on the internet, just ask them how to write like color, parlor, or order and stuff like that, and you'll see what language, what type of English they've learned. Oh, some of your students are here. Okay, hello everybody. But I mean, it's not such a huge difference. The little U is not gonna make you not understand people, obviously. But lots of words in American English were simplified after we decided we're not connected to Britain. So history-wise, Americans decided that Britain, we were a British colony. America was a British colony, but one day we decided, okay, we don't want to be British anymore, we don't want to be connected to you anymore, and we just like push them away. That's how the Independence Day happened, and that's how America was born as an independent country, independent from Britain. And obviously we decided to change the language as well. So we simplified lots of words. We did simplify them. And we've adapted some of the grammar points as well to make it a little bit easier. I think American English is actually a little bit easier to study, to learn and to speak than British English. But that's just like little differences that don't make much difference to people that have to study like from complete zero a new language. But obviously that's just up to you. Grammar wise, Americans have like decided that we're gonna go into easiest points ever, because I do believe that English language is already easy in itself, grammar wise. I think English language is difficult when you have to learn how to read the words, because the pronunciation is quite like icky, the transcriptions of words are quite icky and difficult to master. But grammar wise, I think English language is the easiest of them all, because I've had the experience of studying Mandarin, Korean, and Spanish. Obviously, we study Spanish at school, and I think grammar-wise, English is like the holy spirit of all languages. It's very easy to master, to understand, and to follow the rules. But the main differences, obviously, grammar-wise, we make it easier for everybody. Like, especially I think the slang, everybody knows like yo and wanna, comma, gonna, and stuff like that. What's the difference between TOEFL and IELTS? Honestly, I don't think there's much of a difference, honestly. But to be honest, to be completely frank with you, I don't know much between these two. I know that here most of the people are taking IELTS. In America, we're taking TOEFL. Maybe I know. I think it's American and British, and that's it. Because the majority of the students that I went to school with were taking TOEFL. I've never heard the existence of IELTS before I came here. And I mean, I've only discovered the IELTS only after I came here. So far, everybody has been taking TOEFL in America, in my college. All the foreigners and stuff like that. Hello, thank you for joining. But okay, so grammar-wise, we made Americans decided, okay, we're gonna make it much easier for everybody. I think that's like the common man English, common man language. We stupidified the language to make it easier for like common people to be able to speak it. And we've created new words that have the same meaning but two different words. So for example, let's think of the most like obvious example that the majority of you already might know. For example, the word chips. The word chips in Britain is what we in America call French fries. I think everybody knows French fries from McDonald's and I don't know, like Burger King and stuff like that. Do you know one slang word or phrase with one meaning but different in UK and USA? I don't know the British slang that very well, and I think nowadays the slang is becoming more for like universal, because everybody is like texting each other on the internet and on Twitter and stuff like that. Like the slang is becoming American slang for most of I know is becoming like universal slang so far. But as I was saying, for example, the word chips is what we in America call French fries. In Britain, they call them chips. But if a British person goes to America and asks for chips, we're not gonna be giving that person what he or she wants, which is French fries, like the McDonald's French fries. We're gonna give him potato chips, like Lay's and stuff like that. Is there some special scheme for making the slang in America? I don't think so. No. I think it's just nowadays all the slang is like getting born from out of memes on the internet. The majority of slang nowadays, like what is famous now, what is used now. But American slang takes its roots from the people. So, for example, if you go to, I don't know, for example, to Texas, to some city that borders with Mexico, the slang there is going to be influenced by Spanish language, but still spoken as in American slang. Obviously, in Seattle, where I come from, we have a huge population of Chinese, Taiwanese people, and the slang for us gets its roots from their culture, from their language as well. I like watching comedy shows like Graham Norton, British, I know him, and Jimmy Kimmel and Ellen shows, and I do not see any difference though. Yeah, the difference is not huge. I think the biggest difference that people notice most of the time is just the accent itself. The accent is just like the biggest point of difference that you're going to be noticing. The language itself is not as different that you would imagine. It's still the same language, you still speak it as you would normally speak. It's just like little tiny words that have different meanings that people call differently. For example, as I said, chips and French fries in Britain and America. In Britain you call it a biscuit, in America you call it a cookie. In Britain they spell grey with an E, so it's Grey. In American we use Gray, so the spelling is a little bit different, which might, like, if a person is not educated enough, the person might think, okay, there's a mistake, somebody mispronounced, somebody mistyped, somebody made a mistake. But it's just little small differences in British and color, exactly. That's like, if a person doesn't know that British English and American English is different, that person might think, okay, somebody made a mistake. Theater, center, stuff like that. And obviously different words, beside the different spelling of words. Exactly, center. Very good. Beside the different spelling of words, we also have different names. For example, flat in Britain, we call it an apartment in America. Most of the difference, I think, I've also noticed that the first floor in America, we call it first floor in America, like the ground floor. In Britain, they call it ground floor as well, but they don't call it first floor. So, for example, there's ground floor, which is first floor for us, for Americans. Then there is a second floor that in Britain will be called first floor, which is quite confusing, and I don't understand why. But they don't count the initial floor. They call it a 0. So, when counting floors of an apartment, of a building, they're gonna be starting from 0, 1, 2, 3. In America, we do it differently. We do it 1, 2, 3, and stuff like that. So that's also a difference that you need to know if you're gonna go somewhere in Britain or in America. Because if you need to go on a 6th floor, but you've counted it only to 5th, you're gonna be quite confused, obviously. But that's just the different ways that people count in America. And toilet, restroom, washroom, we see. Yeah, that's also bathroom. And the British way of saying restroom is also the loo. They call it the loo. The restroom they call it the loo, but that's like a purely British way of saying. Washroom is Canadian, but we use washroom as well in Seattle because we're just we're very close to Canada. But the majority of Americans just call it restroom. We don't like to call it bathroom. They prefer not to call it bathroom. It's quite icky for some strange reason. But restroom would be if you need to ask somebody where's the restroom, you're gonna use restroom, not bathroom. And again, I don't know the difference. Why is it? But that's just how it is. Unfortunately, that's the English language for you. What other differences we have? We also, the floor thing is quite confusing in my opinion. Yeah, I know, Louis British Mason. Yeah, exactly. The floor thingy is the most confusing thing for me because I've noticed that lots of European countries also start counting the floor from 0, which I don't know why. Why do they count ground floor called the 0 if it's supposed to be 1? And that's the differences that I think people need to know when traveling around. Otherwise, it's going to be quite confusing. What else do we have? We have a subway, underground differences. We don't call it underground. Underground is for British English. Subway is for American English. And we also have a subway, and we also have the food chain subway. So up to you to decide how you're gonna mean it, how you're gonna use it, obviously. What other differences in British English? They would call American people ignore 13th floor. Some of them. Nowadays it's not that common. But yeah, 13 is considered to be bad luck. And I think it's the same as in some Asian countries. I think it's either Japan or Korea or something like that. They don't count the 7th floor, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's the 7th. Because it's bad luck to be... number 7 is bad luck or something like that. It might be a different number, but there is a specific number that they consider bad luck. For us, it's obviously Friday the 13th, which is historically connected to something that I don't remember to what exactly. We've studied that in school as well. I think it was a mass killing of witches or Christians, something like that. I don't remember, honestly. American history is we don't study it well enough. American history, history in general in America is quite weak, so I don't know much based on that. But other differences that British and English language has, obviously, like for example, when you go to a pharmacy, I think pharmacy is universal, or maybe it's American way. We call the pharmacies, we call them drugstores, which sounds a little bit icky to some people because it has the word drugs, obviously, which some people connect the word drugs to like hard drugs like cocaine and heroin and stuff like that. But in general, drugs in America means any kind of medicine. So for example, if you have a headache and you need some painkillers, need pills to relieve the pain, the pills are gonna be called drugs as well. So we have a distinction between normal drugs that you would pick up at the drugstore, obviously, that's why they call them like that, and drugs which is hardcore drugs like cocaine, heroin and stuff like that. So while in America we call them drugstores, and we also use pharmacy. I think pharmacy is what the majority of you know as. In Britain they'll call it a chemist. Yeah, chemist, exactly. That's what they'll call in Britain. Yeah, that's correct. Drugstore is American. Pharmacy, I'm not sure if it's universal. We do call it like that in America as well, but I'm not sure if they use the same way of saying in Britain. But the most British way is to say it's a chemist, because obviously the creation of pills and stuff like that is connected to chemistry. So they take it like the same word takes its roots from completely two different positions, notions. So British people went into, okay, it's a chemistry thing. People do pills with chemistry. That's why we're gonna call it a chemist. In America, we just decided, okay, they sell drugs. We're gonna make it a drugstore. We like to be more like straight to the point. Truck and lorry, yeah, as well. You'll never hear an American person call it lorry. It doesn't exist in America. If you're gonna ask for lorry, nobody's gonna understand you. We use truck. We like trucks, like American trucks. The most American word ever is truck. Everybody likes trucks. Everybody drives trucks. American people are obsessed with trucks. Yeah, that's actually true. And there are also like subtle differences. For example, what you might know as in, I'm sure you've studied, everybody's studying British English here. Most of you might know the word Q, which is quite different to spell, because it's Q-U-E-U-E. In America, we just decided, okay, it's too different to write, it's too difficult to spell. We just call it a line, which is straight to the point, but it means the same thing. So when you notice the subtle differences between the two versions of English, you're gonna notice that British English, that Americans just decided to simplify whatever English was taken from French. So the majority of words that take their roots from French, Americans decided to like simplify them a little bit to make it easier, because obviously French language is even more difficult to spell and to pronounce than English. And we decided to just make it like straightforward, the most obvious way. What else? Also a difference that I've noticed, lots of people call it autumn. Like there's spring, summer, autumn, and winter. In America, we call it fall. I haven't heard many people saying the word autumn. we just call it fall because obviously it's the time of the year where everything is falling. So the leaves on the trees are falling. So we just decided to be like the most straightforward, obvious way. It's the fall because everything is falling. So as I've already said, these little differences that you might notice in the language, British English is more complicated. American English is simplified version of it. And that's quite unfortunate, but I mean, there's not many differences to them. I'm sure like the way I speak, lots of people still manage to understand me, because obviously there's not that huge of a difference in the two languages. It's just like these subtle little words that people might confuse, and that you don't need to know to travel, to go around the places, but you might be, it's good for you to know the differences. For example, going on a holiday, nobody goes on a holiday in America, everybody goes on vacation. Again, the meaning is exactly the same, but the words are completely different. As somebody already was saying that, like the British way, we say in Britain they say flat, in America we say apartment, in Britain they say lift, in America we say elevator, which it's quite more difficult than the British version, but okay. And one little difference as well that Americans decided to simplify when looking at British English is to cut off those parts that are not pronounced. For example, as lots of you might know, that word is program. So the way British people spell program, it would be PROGRAMME. So it's more like programme, stuff like that. In America, we obviously decided, okay, it's too long. The majority of those sounds are not pronounced, so we decided to cut off the little me at the end, and in America it became program. So it's PROGRAM. Let me spell it for everybody, so you notice the difference. And already my phone is actually underlining that program with ME is wrong for me, because obviously my phone is in American English. So it immediately underlines as it was a mistake. But it's not a mistake, it's just two different places, two different ways of saying the same thing, obviously. And but I just don't want to scare off people. I don't want anybody to be scared of these little differences, because they're subtle, they're not noticeable. And if you want to go to the States, for example, and you only know British English, you've only studied British English, you're not gonna be in trouble in any way or shape or form. You're always gonna, it's the same language, just little subtle differences. I guess it would be the same, although I don't know if there's any differences in the language that, for example, people speak in Nur-Sultan versus what they speak in Almaty, for example. So just little different words, little slangs that appear here and there that people use. and I think it's just you need to get used to it. Unfortunately, just to get used to it, people will notice what type of English you speak usually. In America, they notice very easily when you speak British English, so they might ask you about that. Okay, did you study British and stuff like that? That's why lots of Americans don't like to say, okay, I mean, stupid Americans, I'll be honest, but lots of people say, like when they ask you to speak English, they'll ask you to speak American, which American is not a language, obviously, we speak English. But it's becoming more common for people to speak American, which is quite strange, but I don't understand that. But that's what's becoming quite common nowadays. But as I've said, nobody needs to study these differences before going to travel. It's good to know. It's not going to harm you in any way, shape or form. It's good to know the differences, especially if you don't want to get like little confusions. But it's not tragic if you don't know any of these differences. You're gonna survive just fine in America if you go with British English. I'm focusing more on America because obviously the majority of people that study here, and I think across the United Nations, across the European nations, are all studying British English, which I think it's good to study British English. I think everybody should start with British English because it's a little bit more difficult to study British, but it's also I think it's more interesting to study British because you can see that different words take different roots from other languages. For example, in British English, they saved lots of words that take roots from Old French, which Americans decided to like completely cut them off and change the words completely. We don't like French words. I don't know. Maybe that's why. But I think the majority of differences are between words that come from French and obviously slang. Slang is like a completely different discussion to have. I think American slang right now is becoming more of a universal slang because if you go on Twitter, for example, the majority of words that you encounter is American slang, American way of saying things, especially like you wanna, you gonna, yo, and stuff like that. That's what the majority of Americans use. I'm not an exception to that, obviously. I use it as well. But I think the internet English language is becoming the American English language. So that's just little different subtleties that people will notice when learning the language. But as I was saying, the British language, the British English language, I think that's what everybody should study first. And then just go into American English if you're interested on living, studying, or doing anything like partnering with Americans. And you'll notice that it's easier. The majority of the language that we use is easy language. We don't use like complicated words or stuff like that. English is at least American English is very easy to learn. And it's very easy to use, and the majority of words that we use are plain simple words that like a first grader would know. So the knowledge that you require to go to America is not as great as the knowledge that you would require to go to Britain. That's why I would recommend, it's good that everybody's learning British English, because it's a little bit harder, but it's worth it. Instead of like getting used to a like easy language straight away and then changing it to difficult language, I think you should push yourself straight to the difficult part, overcome it, and then just go the easy way, which is American English. We Americans simplified the majority of words. That's just unfortunately how it is, and it's not bad. Obviously, we just wanted more people to be educated, and we just wanted to eliminate like difficult spellings and stuff like that of certain terms, which is quite commendable, which is quite good for the general population. But that's where the differences come from. When it comes to other countries, I'll be honest, I haven't studied that, I haven't done my research based on that, but I think the majority of English-speaking countries, like maybe Australia, New Zealand, and whatever other countries there are that speak like English, those countries use more for British slang, British English, while I think Canadians as well, or Canadians are more American. I haven't done my research, I don't know the majority of that, but I think the countries that do speak English language as their first language, their roots come from British English. Britain colonized lots of places. That's just history to us, and the language that they did spread was obviously their language, the British English. But as I was saying at the very beginning, and I'll remind again, the purest form of English that you would encounter in India. That's just I've done my research, I've done my studying on that, and Indian language, not Indian language, but English that they do teach you in India is the purest form of English from back to those times when it was India was colonized by Britain. Obviously, British language evolved in Britain, American language evolved, and language is always evolving, it's always changing. New words are going to come out, old words are going to be forgotten, new words are going to have like completely changed the meaning and stuff like that. And it's just, you need to get used to that. I'm sure it's the same for Russian, maybe for Kazakh language. It never stops, it's always evolving, and you just need to get used to it. Unfortunately, there's not much of studying on that, but languages do always evolve, and you might find that some words that you have learned are no more in use in common English, but it just requires learning, and that's it. There's not much else that you might need to. It's just learning, and that's it. I think I've been talking for a little bit for too long now. I've been blabbering around the same topic, but I think it's nice to just for some people to learn about these differences. Also, although they're not important, very important, they are important in their own like small way. So I think that's the end of the speaking club. I've been speaking for way too long right now. It's not my habit to speak that long, that much. But I'll see everybody next Sunday at the same time at 1 o'clock. The topic for the next speaking club will be announced before the speaking club happens. So if anybody is interested in the topic, maybe if there's something that specifically applies to you, you're more than welcome to join us and participate. And it's always fun to learn new things. But as for now, I'm gonna leave everybody. Everybody should enjoy some sun outside. It's very nice weather outside. And I'll see you everybody on next Sunday at 1 o'clock at our next speaking club. Thank you very much for joining us, and I'll see you later. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you.